What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin, and today I was going to show you how I care for my Philodendron Moonlight. Now, I don't know if you've heard the scientific name. It is the Philodendron Moonlight. And the common name is the Moonlight Philodendron, so try not to get those two confused. Alas, this is a hybrid of the Philodendron, so to speak. But it's really cool. I love this plant. I saw this at a greenhouse and instantly fell in love with these massive arrow-shaped leaves and that beautiful lime green kind of chartreuse, almost fluorescent color that this plant gives off. And seeing this on camera really just doesn't do it justice. You have to see one of these guys in person to actually know what I'm talking about and to actually appreciate the sheer beauty of this elegant and gorgeous plant. Now, I know you've seen all kinds of plants out there that are variegated or have this kind of lime greenish, kind of yellowish coloration to them. And over time, they don't really look that good. They look kind of sickly, or they get pale, or they just don't look right. But these guys kind of hang on to their color a little bit better, so they do look better, especially with age. But as the plant kind of matures, it goes from these kind of lime green, almost chartreuse color leaves to this emerald kind of prettier, darker green, emerald green coloration, really. But as the plant kind of matures, and I kind of want to tip this over to show you what I'm talking about. You see this kind of red coloration right over here with these kind of pointy looking spikes in the middle there. And it is really cool because as they unfurrow, you can almost kind of see where I'm looking through here is a little kind of almost hook holder that when these leaves unfurl from this red spike, they still remain a little bit attached to the spike itself and almost kind of look like it's meant to just kind of hang the plant up and just hold it up there. But like I said, they do kind of unfurl, and they are a light green, almost chartreuse color. And then as they age, they do kind of get this deeper, darker emerald green coloration too. So that contrast there is just remarkable and pretty. It's beautiful, and I love it. Alright, everybody say hello to Harvey. He is our newest addition to the family. We did lose Buddha, so he's going over there to make a bunch of noise while I'm recording. But yes, as the leaves mature, they do get kind of larger, and they do kind of get a little ribbed. Like I said, they won't really lose their coloration too much. They actually hold on to it and look really good. Now, like I said, these are hybrid kind of cultivars. They don't get too large. They're more of the clumping kind of shrub-like variety. I know that whenever you hear philodendron, you automatically think climbers or creepers, but this guy is not a climber or a creeper, but it will kind of clump up and get to about anywhere from about 20 to about 24 inches tall, on up to about 20 to 26 inches wide. So it does get a little bit wider than it actually does get taller, but they are a good size kind of tabletop plant. So you don't need to actually stake these guys up, but as they do get a little bit taller with these huge, massive leaves, you may actually have to put a stake or two in there to kind of hold this plant up as it kind of fully matures. So like I said, they're not going to climb on anything, and you're not going to be able to kind of give it a trellis to kind of scale up anything or kind of cascade down. It'll be more like a shrub that kind of gets kind of clumpy and large. But like I said, these leaves actually do get to be a good size, and the plant gets to be a pretty good size itself too. Now, like I said, this is a hybrid, so I don't really know exactly where this guy comes from, but this is a tropical plant. So whenever you think of how to care for this plant and how to recreate its environment, you need to think the tropics. So this guy likes a lot of humidity, a lot of kind of bright indirect sunlight, and then a lot of warm, humid temperatures as well. So with light, I always have mine sitting in the grow room back here that has an east exposure, and then he'll get plenty of morning sunlight And then whenever it starts to get too hot during the harder part of the day and the sun goes down the other side of the house, he is protected. And then I kind of supplement with some LED grow lights. Now this candidate right here, this guy is a perfect candidate for the LED grow lights. And like I say, with this day and age, there is no excuse for anybody to not be giving your plants the right amount of light because of the advancements that we've had with the LED grow lights in the last decade. They are super affordable to actually run, and they are super affordable to actually purchase and keep on for your plant's sake. I think with mine, I have him kind of at the 6th cycle. So the grow lights are on for about 6 hours a day, and most of the time that's if I remember to actually turn them on. Some of mine are actually set up to a timer, but not all of them. With his, I kind of have to remember and make sure I turn that on. But like I said, if I don't, he gets ample sunlight through the morning and he's fine. Now that's not to say that you couldn't set him in a north window, and if you did, you would definitely have to supplement with grow lights. These are marketed as kind of a lower light tolerant plant, but that doesn't mean that you need to give your plant a low light requirement, or if you've had any kind of failures with any other plant and you've stuck them in a place where they don't seem to get enough light and they all die, you don't want to do this to this guy. Like I said, if he gets a moderate amount of light, he's happy, but you just don't want to put him in a place that he's getting direct sunlight, because you can scorch the leaves. If you can see right here, this bright yellow patch that almost looks like the Brazil philodendron, he actually got burnt whenever I picked him up in the greenhouse. So just make sure that wherever you do put him, you introduce them to the sunlight slowly, even if you do get yours from a greenhouse, because you don't know what they've had to go through and where they've set it. Because if I was a gardener and I saw that, I would probably move him to a really lower light area, and then if left there, he might not be getting a whole bunch of light that he needs. And then if you stick him in a south or a west exposure and he's getting all that direct intense light, it could end up killing your plant if left unchecked. So just make sure that you always err on the side of caution whenever you get a new plant. And after you've quarantined your plant for about a month, you introduce it into the right amount of sunlight slowly, and then before too long he'll be fine to go ahead and be in a brighter location. But just make sure that you always do that slowly, because you will burn these plants. And these guys, like I said, they are typically found in the canopy so that they don't get a whole bunch of light. They always get kind of filtered light. Now water, these guys are moderate drinkers. They do like a decent amount of water. I tend to water this guy whenever the top inch to the top 2 inches of the soil dries out. So that's about from your tip of your finger down past the first knuckle. And if you go down there and you don't feel any moisture at all, I would probably go ahead and give them a little bit more water. And I always say that if you pick your plants up and you get to feel for them and you see how light they are, you can tell just based on how heavy they are if they need more water or not. And that's not always a surefire way to do that, but like if you're really intimate with your plants and you know them and you pick them up and you look them over and you are around them a lot, you'd be able to tell if your plant is thirsty or needing more water. Now these leaves will actually start to sag and kind of remind you a little bit of a peace lily and start to wilt if they need more water, but they'll recover nicely if you correct the watering schedule. And talking about water, I want to go into humidity. These are kind of marketed as a average humidity household plant. I find that's a little bit off-putting. That's not the best for these guys. I have my humidity in my grow room at about 50%, and he's been happy with that. I would say anywhere from about 40 up to about 65 is ideal for these guys, but typically average home humidities are okay, but if you want yours to thrive, I would put the humidity in between 40 to 65%. Like I said, mine's at 50 and he's happy. These guys do need to be repotted quite often. They do have a lot of root growth that needs to be kind of repotted about every year. I haven't repotted him since I got him, but I probably will be soon. I've picked him up and I can kind of squeeze. He's got a little bit of give in there, so he's got a little bit of room, but not much. So ideally you want to repot them in the springtime. Now, I guess it's spring here in northern Kentucky. They're calling for snow this Saturday, but it's been really hard to kind of figure that out because that's all we seem to be getting is a lot of rain, a lot of cold weather, and a lot of snow. But this is spring, so I probably will go ahead and repot him before too long, because he won't be able to make it through the entire grow season without actually filling this pot up. So these guys do need to be repotted quite often, about once a year, and they're happy. Now, whenever repotting, you want to choose a decent soil for these guys. Typically something that's really rich in organic matter, that's really light and airy, that drains very quickly is ideal for these guys. Miracle-Gro has a tropical soil mixture that works really well with these. I've used them on my other tropical plants and I've had no problems. I haven't used it with this, but upon all my research, I found that something at least compatible to that is ideal for these guys. So whenever I do repot him, I'll probably mix in a little bit of horticultural grade sand to kind of help with water retention, or some perlite. But if you wanted to go the soilless media route, you could do some peat moss and some perlite mixture, and he'd be happy with that too. But like I said, I'll probably get the Miracle-Gro tropical solution and then mix in some perlite and some horticultural grade sand too to help with the drainage. And I think he'd be happy. Next, I want to talk a little bit about fertilizers. These guys aren't too heavy feeders. I typically feed him, like I said, I got him maybe about 6 months ago, 8 months. I don't know. I've had him for a little bit of time, but like I said, I haven't, it's mainly been fall and winter since I've had him, so I haven't had to feed too much. But I did go ahead and feed him, I think last week, with some fish emulsion. Now I will tell you, if you notice that you have a bunch of slow growth and smaller leaves, that may be your plant's way of telling you that you actually need to fertilize more, that they are a little bit hungry. And if not, if you are fertilizing and you're still getting that kind of slow growth and smaller leaf growth, then you may need to actually introduce more light to your plant. And like I said, you always want to do that slowly because you don't want to burn your plant out. But if the light seems to be on track, then you want to go ahead and see how often you are fertilizing these guys, because they might need a little bit more nutrients. Now, if you do notice that you do have a bunch of pale leaves and they're not that kind of pretty lime green chartreuse color, then you may be kind of short on your plant's requirements for some of the micronutrients like calcium and magnesium. Two of those which are included with fish emulsion. So about a week ago I did wake him up with some fish emulsion fertilizer, and that has perked him up some. Like I said, he's very full and his leaves are very erect and kind of straight, and they just look beautiful. So I'm glad I did give him some of a fish emulsion. But like I said, if you are noticing pale leaves, I would check the micronutrients, especially with this guy, around the calcium and magnesium levels, because that may be something that he needs a lot of that you're not giving him enough of. So check that out if you're not sure. And as always, whenever I fertilize, I do about every month, every other month with a reputable, well-balanced liquid fertilizer, and I often do cut that back by about half. Now, with all other philodendrons, they don't have too much in the way of pests. This guy is no exception, although they do have problems with scale occasionally, mealybugs, and thrips. And then every once in a while, they may have problems with spider mites too. But like I said, if you're always being fairly intimate with your plant and you pick it up and you look him over and you're trying to water carefully and just kind of get in here and look around and see if you notice anything crawling around on your plant, you want to search over and under every leaf, go up and down the stems, any kind of broken leaves, go ahead and just kind of remove that. And just kind of take your time, get to know your plant and see what looks normal and what doesn't look normal. You do want to do some active pruning if you can, but like I said, most of that just kind of comes in with damaged leaves that are kind of cut or broken. And then if you do see any kind of things that may remind you of a pest, any kind of filaments or anything kind of crawling around, then you may want to take your plant and put him in the bathtub and kind of hose him off, or take him out back and use the detachable shower head in your shower or the water hose out back and just kind of shower him off. This is how Mother Nature does it. She'll just come in with a good old rainstorm and just kind of knock any kind of infestation on the plant off. And then you can kind of recreate that with your detachable shower head or your garden hose. And that is the best thing to do with your plants in order to prevent any kind of infestations from coming in and setting up shop in your plant. And it is a kind of more organic way to take care of that, instead of busting out all those chemicals and trying to treat your plant that way. Now, that isn't the only way to take care of that. There are more robust ways to kind of care for that without actually using a whole bunch of chemicals. You can take some isopropyl alcohol and put it on a Q-tip or a washcloth and just kind of come over here and go over top of all the leaves and underneath them, around the stems and all that. And that will kind of get in here and knock anything else off. But scale, if you do see scale, you may have a problem with that. And that may require you taking your thumbnail or a knife or any other flat kind of sharp tool to kind of come in there and scrape those off. Or you may have to actually enlist the help of some systemic pesticides that you can actually kind of water down in here, and the plant will absorb that and then it will actually kill the plant as they start to siphon off nutrients. Now, the last thing I do want to say about this plant is it is toxic. It does contain some calcium oxalate, I believe is what it's called. So if you do have any fallen leaves that fall off, make sure you do pick those up. And make sure you do discard those properly, because you don't want any of your fur babies or your regular babies coming around and putting these in their mouth and chewing on things that they're not supposed to. If that happens, you can have problems with swellage of the mouth and the lungs and the tissues and the tongue and all that other kind of stuff that shouldn't kill nobody, but it probably could if you have a small enough animal or a small enough child. So if you do have kids and you're worried about them ingesting something like that, I probably wouldn't keep this plant. And if you do have some cats or dogs, I have a bird, 3 cats and a dog, and I haven't had any problems, but your pets are different than mine, so you may have to actually keep yours up on a higher bookshelf or something of that nature so that your plants aren't being grazed on by your little ones either. So this plant is mildly toxic, but it is a great plant to have if you can keep it, because it will actually filter out a bunch of toxins from the environment. I believe it can filter out formaldehyde, benzene, something called trichloroethylene. So if you do have any kind of toxins in your air, this plant is a decent one to have to actually help filter out some of that from the atmosphere and from the environment in your home. Now, these plants actually can flower, but grown indoors, they very seldom ever do flower. Now, I'm not saying that that is impossible, but if they are grown indoors, don't look for yours to flower. They can actually create a white spadix with a kind of pinkish reddish kind of spade that looks something like a peace lily. So if you do actually get yours to flowers indoors, pat yourself on the back, because it is a little hard to do, but if grown outside, they probably will be more likely to flower. And as always, I want to give a special shout out to my top tier tree patrons like Thuyen. Thank you. And I'd also like to give another shout out to my other patrons like David and Heather. If you would like to donate to my Patreon, click the link in the description box below. As always, that money coming in helps to keep the lights on, the LEDs running, the humidifiers going, and the plants to come in, and for me to take care of them all. If you need to get a hold of me directly, one of the best ways to do so would be on Patreon. I'm often bogged down by messages, emails, requests, and things of that nature, so Patreon's often the best way to get a hold of me. Well guys, this has been Justin reminding you that if you can, go out and plant a tree. Let's reforest the world. And while you're at it, leave me a comment and let me know if you've ever had any kind of success or failures with any of the philodendrons, especially this Moonlight variety right here. Isn't that gorgeous? And while you're at it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime that I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.